Hey everyone, this is Ashton and welcome back to MuseThemes.com, where today we're looking at our floating link images widget for Muse. This widget has a very focused purpose to display an image when you hover over certain text. Now when the image is displayed, the image follows the cursor smoothly, which we can see here as I move my mouse around. Now this is a simple functionality, but it can be super useful. You can use it to display product images when hovering over product names, or show pictures of team members, or use like you would a tooltip, display images for certain words to display additional information in the way of images. You can randomly highlight certain words or phrases in an article or blog, or really any other way that comes to mind. Now this widget uses a paragraph style to connect images to text. Now this means that you can simply apply a paragraph style to any word, title, or phrase anywhere you like, making the widget highly useful and easy to set up. Since this widget requires the user to hover over text in order to display images, users on touch devices won't see the hover images. So keep in mind that this widget should be intended for desktop use only, where your users can hover with a mouse or any other input device. Let's switch over to Muse so we can take a look at how to set this one up. I've got our demo project open here, but the widgets are pulled off of it so that we can show you how to set it up. Now, as we can see, there are a few sections here on the page where we need to apply the floating link images effect. So let's jump into the library and drop the widget onto the page. And we'll take a look at our settings panel. First option is paragraph style. Now, as mentioned earlier, images are linked to text via a paragraph style. Next up is image, and this is the image that will be displayed. And then image width and height. These settings do exactly what you think. They set the image dimensions. But one thing to keep in mind here, the image dimensions you set here determine the image shape, regardless of the dimensions of the actual image. So for example, our default settings are 300 pixels width by 400 pixels height. This will result in a portrait style aspect ratio. Now, if the image I load in has a landscape aspect ratio, it will be displayed as portrait because those are the dimensions set in the widget. Below the settings at the top, there are more sections below that we can open up. And you can see here that these sections contain the exact settings as seen in the top. This allows us to set 10 floating images in one widget. Now, we could have just given one set of options that would have given the ability to connect one image to text, but the reason we did it this way is because this will allow you to not have to have as many widgets on your page. If you only need 10 floating images, you can get that done with one widget instead of 10. So let's look at our page content here. We've got a list of 4 items, and when we click on the first one, if we look into our paragraph style panel, we see that we have a paragraph style of section 1A applied to it. If we click on the next list item, we see this one has a different paragraph style applied, section 1B. Now, while all 4 of these items have the same styling attributes, we need to apply a different paragraph style to each of them so that we can use a different image for each. We could apply the same paragraph style to all of them, but we'd only be able to apply a single image to all of them at once. So now that we know our paragraph styles for this section, we have section 1A, B, C, and D, we can set up the widget. So back in the widgets panel, we'll set the first paragraph style as section 1A. For image, we'll load in our image titled list 1. There we go. And we'll leave the image dimensions as the default values for now. And I'll quickly open the next 3 sections in the panel here and enter the info for these as well. So for number 2, we'll enable it. Section 1B as the paragraph style. And we'll add the image list 2 into the panel here. For number 3, we have section 1C. And the next list image. And finally, number 4, section 1D. And the final list image. Perfect. Let's give this a browser preview. And there we go. We can now see all of the images showing up as I hover, assigned to their respective texts here on the page. Now back in Muse, if we look at the next section on the page, our demo has images linked to the names in this section, as well as the Learn More text. Now if I click on each of these, we can see that each one has a slightly different paragraph style applied, and this is again because we need to connect the images individually. Now, even though we have 3 images for this section, one for each team member, The Learn More text is a different style than the name title text, so we need to use a different paragraph style there. Now, I'm not going to run into setting this section up, but it would go exactly like the first section. I would load the appropriate images for the appropriate text with the paragraph styles applied. And since I have 6 new paragraph styles to use, I can actually add these to the widget I already have on the page instead of using a new widget. And one note on that, while you can use a separate widget here to keep things better organized, keep in mind that each instance of the widget loads all of the code for that widget separately. So the entire JavaScript library would be loaded twice. So it is best practice to load all you can into one widget. It's generally not going to be a big deal to use several instances of the widget where you want to, but it is technically better to use less when possible. So thanks again for joining me for another tutorial. Everybody, have fun with this one. And if you need any additional assistance with this widget, do not hesitate to reach out to us in support. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Cheers.